Hello, I'm Joanna Taft, and I am Executive Director of the Harrison Center for the Arts. So I wanted to talk to you today, thinking about Miss Shirley's good words about neighborhoods and the joys and sorrows of neighborhood work. And thinking about this theme of community healing, I wanted to talk about the Harrison Center's journey in community healing. So we've kind of gone through different phases, and this is an image from when we first started way back about 20 years ago. And we started the Harrison Center to kind of bring life to a building that was forgotten and vacant in our neighborhood. And so we reached out to artists and we created, eventually we have studios for 36 artists. They're all different, every size, shape, and smell. You can see them here. And we now operate 6 galleries that change art monthly. And all of this was to bring life into a neighborhood that had been forgotten in many ways. But with the work of community healing, you actually learn that there are a lot of different challenges. And after we were open for about a year and a half, my artists started coming to me and started complaining and threatening really to leave Indianapolis. They said that there was no opportunity for them here. They needed to move to bigger cities where people appreciated art, where there were art patrons. So I didn't know what to do, but eventually the Harrison Center saw this as an opportunity for community healing. And we decided to start a school, not just any school, but a school designed to grow world-class citizens or art patrons. We started Heron High School in the basement of our building, and eventually Heron High School has become a network of schools that's called Indianapolis Classical Schools. It has both Riverside and Heron, and both of them have created opportunity for people at different income levels to have an excellent education. So that was one phase. That early phase was we began to think about community healings in terms of institutions and what we could do to strengthen the fabric of our city. But after we started Heron High School, we had the opportunity to work with a lot of youth, and they were very excited to serve their community. And so we started thinking about how the arts could actually do creative placemaking in the community to bring joy to neighbors and to bring life to our neighborhood. And so we did silly things. We had an intern repair broken buildings with Legos. Do you have any broken buildings in your neighborhood? I think it was maybe 5 years ago, we had 3 months of snow that just would not melt, and we were sick and tired and actually depressed. And so our interns went out and they painted the snow with acrylic powder. And they did that to make neighbors feel really good as they drove home and as they walked the sidewalks. They were tired of that gray and that white. Another thing that our interns did to bring some life to the neighborhood is on a very hot day, they created a pool truck, and they decided to drive around the city and to bless people by letting people see them in this pool truck. And of course, they told me they were going to network. They were going to meet neighbors and get to know people so that they could serve them better. So they went off in this pool truck, and they were pulled over by the police, and they were told never to do that again. But it still makes for a great story, and their hearts were really good. They were really trying to use their senses and to use something interesting to look at, a surprising experience to help build relationships. And this must have been the summer of trucks, because another intern took her father's pickup truck and filled it with dirt and planted a garden and started going into our neighborhood apartment complexes and letting the kids see how plants are grown and letting them taste the herbs and actually harvest the vegetables as the summer went on. So again, art can be used in lots of different ways to bring healing. One of the funniest things we did were building giant puppets. We had a little fund where interns could come and apply for money for their projects. And so an intern came and he wanted $372 to build 3 giant puppets. And I looked at him and I said, I'm supposed to go back to my funders and say that we use this money to build giant puppets? What need are you addressing in the community? And without skipping a beat, he said to me, Indianapolis needs a spectacle of wonder. And so he spent all summer building these puppets, and he took them down to the circle when he was done, and he unloaded them from his pickup truck, and People started streaming out of their office buildings, and the TV came, and the radio came, and the newspaper came, and it was great. The earned media was wonderful. But the best thing that happened was it made people really happy that they lived in Indianapolis. This intern said, Indianapolis needs a spectacle of wonder. And that is something that we've learned applies to neighborhood work, and it applies to neighborhood healing. When we provide these things like spectacles of wonders, it helps people heal and helps people reconnect to their community. But things changed. So we were doing a lot of work in our neighborhood, and somebody showed me this map in 2008. And this is actually an abandoned housing map of Indianapolis. And every dot on this map represents an abandoned building, but it also represents a social justice issue, an education issue, a public health issue, a public safety issue, and a cultural health issue. And we realized that our city was going to need help from all sectors in strengthening our neighborhoods. And so we wondered how art could be a better partner and how art could be used for neighborhood healing. So we started creating a lot of art that celebrated, visual art that celebrated the stories of the neighborhood. So this is Robert Kennedy and MLK, and this is a painting of the memorial that's just a few blocks from the Harrison Center. We started commissioning musicians to write songs celebrating our neighborhoods. We did other crazy things like free flower Fridays, which was a huge hit, and just kind of passing out flowers and making their day and helping them to see how beauty can be healing. We tried to activate vacant storefronts, and when we couldn't actually get permission to use a vacant storefront, we actually built our own. And we did the vacant storefront where we could do gallery openings and coffee shop and pop-up theater shows and also more puppets. But one of the things we realized as we were working in the neighborhood was that people in other neighborhoods, even though we were invited, people were nervous about our presence there. And they weren't really sure that the vitality that we were adding was really what they wanted. And I had to think about that for a minute. It seemed like the neighbors were actually nervous and afraid that the arts presence was in their neighborhood. And what I realized was that our neighbors were afraid that their stories were going to be erased and that their culture was going to be erased, and that we didn't really understand the power of the arts. We were bringing the arts in, but we were in the process erasing their stories. I had to think about that, and I had to think about how could we use the arts to know and love people? How could we use arts to elevate neighborhood stories so that people are not erased and their stories are not erased? And so we started changing the way that we use the arts in the community. And so I'm going to show you a video about a barbershop where we hired a musician to come in to actually write music about the barber's testimony, the barber's neighborhood story.
Big shout Cheatham and Moore. Big shout Mr. Moore. Gotta let the people know. We're in the barbershop a blessing. Here to meditate, here to celebrate black excellence, opulent, decadent, effortless, elegance, mindful intelligence, Hall of Fame, excellent, business up, excellent. Just the other year, homie, guaranteed a Cadillac. Never got to it, guess the Lord had to have him back. Love is hard, love is soul, loyal to the day I'm old. Never gotta take a break, never gotta break a bone. Building all the brothers up, levitate. We be thinking better with the freshest cut. Heaven's sake, I done made a mess now, shoulda have to clean it up. Message for the children, always help clean it up. I done met a triple OG, how'd you make it out? Never would've made it, and I'm wiser and I'm stronger now. Live to tell the story, it's a blessing that you tell it. The people need to hear it. The barbershop a blessing, man. The barbershop.
So I'm going to stop that video and tell you that we began to wonder if there was a better way that the arts could partner with community development to bring about an equitable change in neighborhoods. So when we could strengthen neighborhoods, but in a way that wouldn't erase the stories and wouldn't push people out. And so we began to wonder how to do that. And to be honest, we didn't know how to do that. We looked across the country and we looked for models, and we couldn't really find a good model. So we thought maybe we could partner with theater. Since we didn't know what a just and equitable future in a neighborhood looked like, we thought maybe theater could act it out for us. And so we came with a whole new program. And we called this program Pre-Enactment Theater, and our event Pre-Enact Indy. And through this program, we partnered with theater to act out a world that ought to be, to act out a neighborhood where there had been healing, where there was racial equity, where there was social equity, where there was good schools and housing and economic opportunity for all. So since we were using theater, we turned a 3-block stretch of East 16th Street into a stage. Every square inch of this space was a stage. So we used the sidewalks, we used the streets, we used the vacant lots. You can see the empty buildings. This is actually a map that shows kind of the ground plan, and you can see that for these 3 blocks, everything is part of our stage, and every section is part of the script. And so the set designers built 11 temporary buildings on the vacant lots, and the actors acted out the neighbors' hopes and dreams. And those hopes and dreams were quite varied. One of the things the neighbors told us was that people drove too fast on 16th Street. And so we put they'd been complaining about this for 70 years. And so we put a cafe right in the middle of the street to slow cars down. We still let cars drive through, but we made them slow down so that they realized neighbors lived there and that they needed to pre-enact. They needed to show more respect to the neighborhood story. We also partnered with the long-term residents, the Gratriarchs. We interviewed them for their hopes and dreams for the neighborhood, which informed the script. These are 6 paintings. We now have 18 paintings of Gratriarchs, and we hang them on the vacant buildings in the neighborhood as a way of elevating the story and as a way of inviting people into the story of their neighborhood. And we'll talk more about the Gratriarchs later, but I'll mention that the red piece in the middle is Miss Shirley, and you heard her speak earlier in reference to the Gratriarchs. This is a video of our Pre-Enact Indy event.
Somehow we've got to find a way to recognize how we got here today in order for us to understand where we ought to go. Yes. In order for us to form new realities, to form new normals, to help create a neighborhood we've never seen before, for our children and our children's children, for our children and our children's children. Form a new normal, new normal, new normal, new normal, yeah, I know you, 'cause you look just like my brother. Yeah, and I know you, that you look just like my sister. No, and together we can make new realities. Let's say together we can form a new normal, new normal, new normal, new normal. Yeah, I know you.
I know you.
Yeah, you look just like my auntie.
Like my auntie.
Yeah, and I know you.
I know.
'Cause you look just like my nephew. No, and together we can make new realities. I said together we can form a new normal, new normal, new normal, new normal. Hey. Chill. 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 Ha. 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 Hey. 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 Pick up, pick up. Chill. Together we chill. Can form a new normal, new normal, new normal, new normal. You.
Da 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 da. daddy's son and your sister's sister.
So we just talked about pre-enactment theater, and we're going to transition it into porch parties. But they're actually connected because they're part of our community healing work. It's through porching that neighbors become connected. It's through porching that a neighborhood, when neighbors across a neighborhood are porching, the neighborhood becomes healthy. Because when people are connected, they're healthy. And so we have been promoting porching since 2014 at the Harrison Center. These are some yards. This is a yard sign that we created to encourage our neighbors to porch. But we also asked our artists to create paintings celebrating porching. So this is actually a painting in my house. I'm in the black dress here. I look a little bit taller and skinnier than usual. But this is one of the early paintings from porching. But this is my front porch, and this is what it looks like. And every Sunday, my husband and I porch from 3 o'clock to 5:30, at least pre-COVID. We would sit out here with our friends and neighbors. And so it was through porching that we got to know the Graytriarchs. And it was through porching that we got to know their hopes and dreams. And it's through porching that we, as the Harrison Center, have learned to listen to our neighbors and to be able to respond with the arts for community healing. It's funny, when we started the porching movement, a lot of people started asking, how do you porch? And I didn't know that people would need to know how to porch. But unfortunately, modernization has affected all of us. It's through modernization that we have air conditioning and TVs and privacy fences and attached garages. And all those things keep us from knowing our neighbors. And so if you have a front porch or a front stoop or a front yard or a front driveway, sit out in it. Make it a practice to sit out there. We have instructions for porching. If you would like any of these rack cards, you can email me. I'd be happy to send you one. And we also have some videos online about how to porch. It's very simple. Invite your friends. Be friendly. Practice your Hey Neighbor wave. Share, make some food, some family traditions. It's very easy. We have 10 steps that we'd be happy to share with you. Last year, in 2020, we were getting ready to kick off our porching initiative, and all of a sudden we realized that we couldn't do that because of the requirement of social distancing and keeping people safe. So we reinvented porching into social distance porching, and we asked our neighbors to get up from their couch every day at 5 and go to their front porch or their front stoop or front lawn and to practice their Hey Neighbor wave, because it was a way that we could stay connected during social distancing. And so we actually had a social distance porching movement around the city during COVID. A lot of people were spending time on their porches. We advertised it through our billboards, social distance porching. We also did some online advertising, and we had our artists create porch party platters that we used to get people intrigued about the porching idea. And then we hired a photographer to go out and to actually document how people were social distance porching. And this is a family where they were having the kids do their music practice on the porch. So it doesn't matter what size porch you have or where you live in town, porching is available to you, whether you have a front porch or a front stoop. I'm going to play a little video on our social distance porching movement.
I'll throw a party on my porch today. Everyone's invited. 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 Everyone's invited.
So 2020 was a really hard year, and we have been learning from our past work with neighborhoods, and we've really settled in on using the arts to know and love our neighbors. We don't use the arts to change neighborhoods anymore. We use the arts to know and love neighbors, which we believe brings about the type of change that is equitable and a blessing to neighborhoods. So during COVID, I'm going to share a couple things that we did. We did some quarantine bags that we delivered to our neighbors, and we filled them with art supplies and neighborhood history materials and hygiene products. Here's actually some paper doll book pages that included our matriarchs and our artists. We also gave them yarn and a pattern to make petals, which we then used for knit graffiti. So that's an example of one of the things that we did during COVID. We did much more, including social distance hoop skirts and other kinds of flower deliveries and scones by drone. But my main message for you today is that art is powerful, and art can change a neighborhood, but you have to be really, really careful with that power. You have to use it in the right way so it doesn't end up hurting people, but it instead blesses people. So as you think about your neighborhood and how you can bring community healing, use creative placemaking, use porch parties, start a matriarch program so that you can know and love your older neighbors that helped write the story of the neighborhood. Do those things, but do it in a way that honors the story of those that came before you and elevates the story of the neighborhood so it cannot be erased. Thank you so much.